And good evening, East Alabama and West Georgia. Dr. Don in here with you. It's Weather Talk Live. We're talking winter storm across the southeastern United States, potentially for early Friday morning throughout the day for some locations on Friday, and maybe even into Friday night for other locations, especially over in Georgia. So we, I think, are getting a grasp on a decent forecast, and I think we're going to settle in on what I'm about to show you in just a few moments. Now, there will be subtle tweaks to the forecast as we go throughout the day tomorrow, but I think we're finally landing on a solution for the greatest opportunity of what we think is going to happen on Friday. Now, before we get started, let me say this, and I want you to listen to what I'm about to say, and I want you to understand what I'm about to say. There are going to be surprises. Some folks are going to get more than what's going to be forecast. Some are going to get less. Some folks are going to be happy. Some people are not going to be so happy with this event. If you're a snow lover, the further north you are, the better your chances are going to be to have enough snow to build a snowman. If you can't stand snow and don't want to have anything to do with it, then you need to be further south, because if you're in South Alabama, south of the I-85 corridor, and in South Georgia, south of metro Atlanta, odds of you seeing measurable snow are pretty low. North of that area I just talked about, the chances of snow will increase. And we once thought that there might be a pretty significant path across Alabama and Georgia of freezing rain. And the latest data that we have received, the thermal data, is beginning to suggest that that might not necessarily be the case. It may be a pretty quick transition from snow to just rain, maybe a little sleet mixed in there. I mean, there could be some areas along the way that get enough freezing rain to cause some issues, but it's beginning to look like overall we're not looking at as much or as large of a coverage area of freezing rain as the forecasters originally thought. So it may be you go from having winter precipitation to nothing but just a cold rain in a very short distance wherever that line ends up setting up. And we're going to show you where we think that's going to be. First, though, let's take a look at the latest national watch and warnings out there. And you can see that we already have winter storm watches that have been posted for portions of northeastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, back over into Arkansas, northern Louisiana, northern Mississippi, and western Tennessee. Those are all winter storm watches for all of those counties. That is typically issued about 48 hours before onset of precipitation. Then about 24 hours in advance, they'll pull the trigger on warnings for some of these counties. You'll notice that most of Tennessee, Alabama, North Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina has not issued anything for their states just yet. And it's beginning to look like we may not get anything from the Weather Service until maybe tomorrow afternoon, maybe even tomorrow night before we get those watches and or advisories. So there are three things that can happen here. You can go under a winter storm watch, and then you can be upgraded to a winter storm warning. There's also a winter weather advisory in there. And so what the National Weather Service is trying to do, and the reason they're waiting, at least in Alabama, is because they don't want to go with the watch and then go to an advisory, because most people think an advisory is a downgrade from a watch, and that is incorrect. An advisory is just a level between a watch and a storm warning. That's not a downgrade. But Typically, that's what happens if they go with a watch and then they decide not to go to a warning because we're not going to get quite as much as we originally thought. So they issue an advisory. People say, oh, well, no big deal. I'm going on about my way. Kind of like during severe weather. When you hear severe thunderstorm warning, a lot of people don't take heed to that certainly as much as they do tornado warnings, and that would be wrong too. Severe thunderstorms can kill you just as quick as tornadoes can. So that's why they're holding off on issuing watch products for Alabama. And, of course, Georgia's kind of watching to see what Alabama's going to do. Different weather offices controlling Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee as well. So that's kind of a look at where the watches are right now. I think we will see probably winter storm watches for the northern third of Alabama, and then maybe an advisory for central Alabama. And I would expect to kind of see the same thing over in Georgia. Probably will be all watches up in Tennessee, and then those watches would be upgraded to warnings probably or first thing Thursday morning. The event will not unfold until after midnight Thursday night, but they like to get those things out there about 24 hours in advance. All right, so I have a lot of things to show you, and we're going to talk about all of these. But before I do that, let me welcome Tyler Slay and the Slay family to Dr. Don's Weather at AT Farms down in Lafayette, Alabama. They're at 2030 County Road 162, and they offer a lot of things throughout the year, but right now they're working on shelled deer corn. Deer season continues, of course, and so you can go by there and you can buy that shelled deer corn by the bag or by the barrel. Now, you need to call Tyler at 334-614-6740 to find out when they're going to be there and to set up an appointment to come by and pick up your deer corn. So thank you, Tyler Slay and family, for supporting us here on Dr. Don's Weather. And you deer slayers out there, be sure this is where you get your deer corn from for the remainder of the season. And make sure you tell them that Dr. Don's Weather sent you, and tell Tyler thank you for being a partner with us here on Dr. Don's Weather, making all of this possible. All right, so here we go. The first thing I want to do is show you the southeast snow forecast. Now, this is based off of the ensemble, which is kind of a blend of multiple different runs or different models within a family of models. And this is really the best way to kind of look at this when you're more than 36 or 48 hours away from an event. This kind of gives you a good average of what you can expect, and you can see that if this verifies, and this is where we're settling in right now, we're talking about 2 to 4 inches of snow across North Alabama, 2 to 4 inches of snow across North Georgia. There could be some spots up there in Northeast Georgia, maybe 3 to 5 inches. It just kind of depends on how things set up. And then right across central Alabama, anywhere from a half inch up to about 2 inches of snow is what we're looking at right now. And that would be the same back over toward Atlanta Metro, basically along and north of the I-20 corridor, a half inch to about 2 inches possible. And then up there, maybe from Hamilton over to about Coleman, Rome, Gainesville, Toccoa north, we're in that 2 to 4 inch range with some, localized areas that could be in that 3 to 5 category. Same thing for North Alabama. There's always surprises. Some locations always get more than they're supposed to. Other locations always get less than they're supposed to. So keep that in mind as we head toward Friday's event. Now let's take a look at the Alabama snow possibilities. And again, we're talking 2 to 4 inches up there in North Alabama from about, Gadsden over to North Birmingham, back into Mississippi north. We're talking 2 to 4 inches. And that 4 inch would be up there right along the Tennessee-Alabama line. The 2 inches would be back down closer toward Gadsden. And then that half-inch to 2-inch accumulations there right across Birmingham, back over toward Anniston, right along the I-20 corridor, maybe dipping down into central Randolph County. And then below that, probably just flurries and just a dusting from about Roanoke over to about Chilton County and south. That's the idea at the moment. Now, again, this will get tweaked a little bit as we go through tomorrow and into Thursday. These numbers may go up a little bit. The snow line, the heavier axis of snow may get pushed a little bit further to the south. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see this line bumped maybe a county or two level further south before we get to this event on late Thursday night into Friday morning. So don't take this as gospel. This is not etched in stone. I'm not telling you this is exactly what's going to happen at your house. I'm just giving you what I think is a pretty good handle on this 48 hours before this takes place. Then the winter weather threat. This is the latest graphic from the National Weather Service office out of Birmingham. So you can see significant impact area is in purple. That's up there in North Alabama. We're talking about dangerous or impassable driving conditions. And for you folks watching me in Georgia, you can just carry that right on across North Georgia because same thing over there in North Georgia. And I'll show you some National Weather Service Peachtree City graphics in just a bit. Widespread closures and disruptions to infrastructure may occur up there in the purple areas. That's Gadsden. That is Coleman. That is Hamilton. The reason you don't see Coleman on this graphic is because that's in the Huntsville National Weather Service responsibility area. What you're looking at are all the counties that Birmingham are responsible for. Then you have the elevated impact area, which is the darker shade of blue, where we could have hazardous driving conditions. You'll certainly want to use caution while driving, and I wouldn't recommend driving in those areas if this verifies. Closures and disruptions to infrastructure may occur. Now, those are places such as Wedowee, perhaps Roanoke, perhaps Franklin, Woodland, maybe Lineville, Delta, Mount Cheaha for certain, up there around Ranburn, along the I-20 corridor, and then back over to the west, right out the I-20 interstate, back toward Birmingham and down toward Tuscaloosa. Then below I-20 for the most part. Now, Randolph County, this graphic is showing that dipping down into northern Clay and Randolph and back over toward Heard and Carroll County because there's a decent chance we're going to see a cat effect or cold air damming where we're going to see some cold air push back in from Georgia as it circulates around a high-pressure system sitting up over the Virginias. We're going to see more cold air pumped back from the east into Georgia. Well, when it hits the backside of the Appalachian Mountains, it funnels it right into East Alabama. So the forecasters that made this graphic are at least banking on a weak CAD. We just don't know how strong that CAD is going to be. If it is very strong, then everything could change for West Georgia and East Alabama. We could see much higher snow totals. And we just don't know until it sets up, to be quite honest with you. But for the rest of central Alabama and East Alabama, you're in the limited impact area. That's the lighter blue, where winter driving conditions may require you to use caution while driving. And that would be along basically the I-85 corridor, the Highway 80 corridor north up to about Birmingham and then back over to Alexander City. So that's what we're looking at right now. And again, I think this is a pretty good solution at the moment for what we think is going to happen as we head toward late Thursday night into Friday morning. So here's the Georgia best guess for winter precipitation at this time. We're looking at mainly snow across North Georgia. We're talking about from Gainesville right along that I-85 corridor back down to Atlanta, and then I-20 from downtown Atlanta all the way back into Alabama. So Georgia's graphic lines up very well with what Alabama has already published. And so we're looking at mostly snow from the I-20, I-85 corridor north. So for you folks watching us up here in northeast Georgia, Helen, Cleveland, Clarksville, down into Gainesville, back over toward Dahlonega, Blairsville, Blue Ridge, up at Tiger, Georgia, Toccoa, all those areas, I think the majority of the precipitation will be in the form of snow, and that could be an extended period of time starting maybe right at daybreak on Friday morning, continuing throughout the day on Friday. There will be a window of a couple of 2 or 3 hours Friday afternoon where we could transition to a mixture of snow, sleet, rain, or freezing rain. But I'm beginning to think that's not going to be a huge deal. And then as the sun sets Friday afternoon, we'll transition back to all snow. And it may continue on into the night on Friday night. Of course, anything that falls during the day on Friday, if any of it were to thaw in that 2 to 3 hour period Friday afternoon, it's going to quickly refreeze when the sun sets Friday night, and travel issues could very well be extended from Friday morning all the way into Saturday afternoon. We believe conditions will deteriorate, and this is good for Alabama and Georgia very quickly at the onset of all of this, because you got to remember, we're going to be in the deep freeze when this stuff arrives on Friday morning. The ground is going to be frozen, and we're going to have ample cold air in place to support snow along the I-20, I-85 corridor north, and maybe even along I-85 in Alabama north from the get-go. You know, typically when we have snow in the south, you get the rain in here first, and it typically comes in the afternoon, and then as the temperature falls in the evening, the column has to saturate before it starts hitting the ground, and then we have to go through that evaporational cooling process before we start to get snow to the ground. And by that time, half of the moisture's already been burned by the atmosphere trying to get the snow machine started. That will not be the case on Friday. When we start, we will start. And anything that falls pre-dawn or within the first 3 or 4 hours for East Alabama and West Georgia is going to stick on contact. Then, as you get into mid-morning, you may get above freezing enough to where you go back over to a mixture of sleet and snow. All kinds of possibilities on the table, but these graphics I'm showing you, I think, are pretty close to what's probably going to take place. Now, for Atlanta Metro, back over toward Athens, out the I-20 corridor toward Augusta, in that pink area, it'll be mostly snow, possibly mixed with sleet or freezing rain. It'll turn into freezing rain or rain by mid to late afternoon Friday. So not nearly as much accumulation across middle Georgia as what we'll see across north Georgia. And then south of Atlanta Metro, down there in the green shaded areas, that'll be a light mix of freezing rain, sleet, or snow early on Friday, becoming mainly rain by Friday afternoon. I think that's down to about Macon. If you're much further south than Macon, you may not see anything but a cold rain all day long on your Friday. So here's another graphic from the National Weather Service out of Atlanta, but this shows Alabama as well, so I thought this was a pretty cool graphic for you. This is the probability of 1 inch or more of snow accumulation across Alabama and Georgia. So, look, I mean, for you snow lovers in East Alabama, your Lineville, Alabama has a 52% chance of seeing 1 inch or more snow accumulation during this event. So that 52% would be the same for Wedowee. It drops down drastically after that to about 24% down in the southern parts of Clay and Randolph. And then over in Heard County, you're looking at the same thing. Back over toward Noonan, you got 56% chance of seeing 1 inch or more in snow. LaGrange, you're at 25. Then you get up here in northeast Georgia, and we're in the 90 percentile. Almost a sure bet that we're going to see more than 1 inch of snow across northeast Georgia. Now let's look at the ice probabilities. This is an interesting graphic as well, same area. So we got about a 50%, 56% chance of seeing ice across Talladega, Cleburne, Clay, Randolph, even over into Heard County from about Franklin north up into Carroll County, and then Noonan. Then places like Alexander City, back over toward Lafayette Valley, about a 40% chance of seeing more than 0.10 inches of ice accumulation. And that really won't cause much problem. I mean, it could lay down a glazing, which would be more of a problem on bridges and overpasses. You really need to get up to about 0.25 inches or higher for things to become really bad when we're talking about ice. The ice load, the damage from the ice load really starts when we get up to about a quarter of an inch of ice accumulation. So really don't look for anything major as far as an ice storm is concerned. There was a time in the past 24 hours where we thought that might be a pretty good possibility, but right now it doesn't look that way. We think we're going to stay cold enough where most folks are going to have snow or mixture of snow and sleet throughout most of this. All right, so let's go back over to let's go to the radar. This is not a live radar. This is a Futurecast radar. This is the model that I was showing you last night that kind of tells us what we think the radar is going to look like when all of this unfolds. And again, we're still watching to see exactly where the low-pressure system forms and exactly how it tracks in time across the southeastern United States. That's going to play a big factor into what we receive in different locations. And I'll show you what the models are kind of honing in on a track, and I'll show you in just a moment what that's going to look like. Let me put this in motion, though. We're going to let this thing run, and you'll see. We're coming up, let's see here. This is Thursday morning. We start to see this happen over to our west. It gets into Mississippi around 8 o'clock Thursday night. And then here we go, coming into central Alabama about 4 o'clock on Friday morning. And at least this one particular model shows about 3 or 4 hours of all snow all the way down to the I-85 corridor before it starts transitioning back to a mostly rain event. So that kind of went through there quick. So let me back it up, and we're going to go through this one frame at a time. So I'll bring it back to midnight. This will be midnight on Thursday night, going into Friday morning. So you can see that we have mostly just liquid rain coming into southwest Alabama, maybe a few pockets of freezing rain trying to develop way over in west Alabama at midnight on Thursday night. Now, we'll move this out to about 3:30 on Friday morning, and you'll see the white stuff pop up right there across East Alabama, basically from I-85 down there, Auburn, Opelika, all the way back up across Clay and western Randolph County up toward I-20. And again, you'll notice, I'm going to rock this back and forth. It's not there, and then boom, it is. And that's what I'm talking about. This is not going to be a slow transition that takes several hours for it to start hitting the ground. This is going to happen almost immediately, and anything that falls at this time on Friday morning is going to accumulate. So then we move forward. We'll take you out to 6:39 on Friday morning. We've still got pretty decent snow taking place across East Alabama and West Georgia from Atlanta all the way back really to Elmore County and back over toward I-65 in the Clanton area and back up toward Birmingham. So that's at 6:39 on Friday morning. So it's let's see, we've been in the snow now for about 3 hours, if this model verifies. So easily could see about an inch of snow by this time on Friday morning if this is correct. And we'll move you on out to around 9:30. And look at that. We've still got snow across East Alabama. Maybe some mixture and a little freezing rain along the I-85 corridor. I'm not really sure that verifies because I think this particular model that we're looking at, which is the GFS, might not be interpreting that correctly. I think most of the frozen precipitation is going to stay north of I-85. And then we'll take you on out to around 12:30. Now, we start to see the transition take place across East Alabama. We're going all rain now. So whatever has accumulated across East Alabama is now probably in the process of being washed away by rain that's falling. We still got decent snow up there, though, across the I-20 corridor back up toward Atlanta. Snow has already started. Let's see what time the snow, according to this model, the snow will start up in northeast Georgia around 7:30 on Friday morning. So, again, there we go at 9:30. There's 12:30. And then by 3:30 Central on Friday afternoon, we're all liquid across East Alabama and West Georgia. But note, we still have significant snow occurring basically along and north of the I-85 corridor up in North Georgia, Northeast Georgia, and then back across North Alabama and stretching all the way back into Mississippi at 3:30 on Friday afternoon. So we still have a ways to go here. Then as we head towards 6:30 p.m. on Friday, we still have snow across northeast Georgia, but notice this mixture of sleet moving out of Atlanta up to the northeast. This could be where we could transition from snow over to a combination of snow and sleet across northeast Georgia as we head towards sunset on Friday. And then there we are at 9:30 on Friday night. This is still saying that we're in a sleet mode. And that may be possible because of that warm nose that may be up in the upper levels of the atmosphere. It just may be melting that snow. Then it's refreezing before it hits the ground. So it may be more grapple than sleet if this ends up being correct. But look, the precipitation's ending across East Alabama at about 9:30 on your Friday, but still going pretty strong up here in northeast Georgia at 10:30 Eastern on Friday night. Look at that. I mean, we're at 1:30 Saturday morning, and we still have precipitation in northeast Georgia. Most everything is out of Alabama by this time. And then by 3:30, 4:30 on Saturday morning, all the precipitation is pulled on up into North Carolina, and we're clear of precipitation across Alabama and Georgia. But that doesn't mean it's over at that point because we're going to be frozen solid by this point, and we're going to struggle to get out of the 30s or the low 30s up here in northeast Georgia during the day on Saturday. So whatever problems we have at this point when the precipitation ends in northeast Georgia is going to hang with us for a while. I think Alabama's going to be in a much better position by that time, though. And I think by Saturday afternoon, anything that may still be on the ground, and I wouldn't expect much because remember, the last 4 or 5 hours of this event across East Alabama and West Georgia is going to be all liquid rain. So that's going to take care of most of the snow. But there could be some slick spots when you get up on Saturday morning because there's going to be some wind, but it's not going to be, ferocious. So we could have some moisture out on the roads that does freeze across East Alabama and West Georgia Friday night into Saturday morning. All right, so now let me go back over here and get the telestrator on, and I want to show you kind of again like we did last night. Let me zoom out a little bit more and move that over here. Now we're gonna have arts and craft time here, so don't laugh at my drawing. That was not one of my strong suits. All right, so we're looking at the low pressure system forming some. Well, wait a minute. Got to change colors so you can see it. Low pressure is going to form somewhere in this general vicinity. That's your low pressure system. And then let's change colors on the tracks. We don't want green. That's hard to see. Let's go black. Kind of hard to see, too. That's track 1. Let's go white. That's track 2. And let's do some yellow. This would be track 3. Now, the thing is, we don't know for certain exactly which track this low is going to take. Is it going to take the northern route? Is it going to take the middle route? Or is it going to take the southern route? The northern route would just about kill any possibility of freezing rain across most of Alabama and Georgia, because we would be way too close to that low pressure. Understand, low pressure picks up that warm moisture off the Gulf of Mexico as it moves, and so that would bring the temperatures up as it moves into South Alabama and South Georgia. And East Alabama, West Georgia certainly would be too close to that low to pick up any meaningful frozen precipitation at all. And it would limit the frozen precipitation up here in northeast Georgia also, if it took that northern track. If it takes that white track, which is the middle track, that's going to pull that freeze line down a little bit further, because we would be there'd be a little bit more distance between the low pressure and East Alabama, West Georgia, and Northeast Georgia. So that would increase the snowfall amounts across the northern part of both states, and it would give us a little bit of a chance of some freezing rain mixed in with the sleet and snow across East Alabama and West Georgia. And then the third and final possibility would be this more southern route, which is that yellow track. And if it were to take that track, then we may see the snow line pull way down into South Alabama and maybe even across the I-16 corridor in Georgia. Would likely increase the snowfall amounts across East Alabama, West Georgia. I think everything that falls across northeast Georgia would be snow if it takes that southernmost track, or that yellow track. So, which track is it going to take? We can't tell you. Nobody knows. There's all kind of models out there on the social media, on the YouTube, and on the Facebook, and the Twitter, and the X, and all that kind of stuff. Everybody has their own wish list for how this is going to play out. Folks who love snow are going to grab those models that show the most snow, and that's what they're going to show you on social media. Folks who can't stand it are going to pick those models that show the least amount of snow. And that's what they're going to show you. And your head's spinning because there's so much information out there. And as I explained last night, I'm not a meteorologist. What I do is take the information that the guys and gals at the National Weather Service put out there and present it to you in long-form presentation, and give it to you as simple as possible so you can understand it. So I'm just a messenger. I take what they put out there and I give it to you. And they are, most of our National Weather Service meteorologists are darn good at what they do. Here's the problem. If it doesn't do what some folks want it to do, then they blame it on the National Weather Service instead of listening and comprehending what they're saying. So we can't tell you for certain which track this low pressure is going to take. I can tell you what the odds are, and I can tell you what it's beginning to look like. It's beginning to look like somewhere, but either along the white track or the yellow track, or maybe somewhere in between the two. I think we're probably looking at a track pretty close to Jacksonville, Florida, and then right up the East Coast. And so that very well could give you some snow across East Alabama and West Georgia for several hours Friday morning, and then it's going to transition to all rain. And up here in northeast Georgia, we stay mostly snow throughout the day. If we get a warm nose in the upper levels of the atmosphere, then there's a 2 or 3 hour period there late in the day on Friday where we could transition over to freezing rain or sleet. But I think for the most part, we see snow. So, in a nutshell, 2 to 4 inches across North Alabama, North Georgia, a half inch to 2 inches across Central Alabama, East Alabama, West Georgia. And that would be down to about a Lineville, Wedowee, Franklin line and north. Along that line and south, you're probably in that half inch to 1 inch, and most of that would be on grassy areas and rooftops. And then down along the I-85 corridor, you'll see some frozen precipitation, but I'm not really sure you see any type of accumulation down there along the I-85 corridor. Okay, that was a lot. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head over to the chat room and I'm going to see if there's any questions, see if I can answer any questions. And if, please, folks, if you didn't understand, I know I threw a lot of stuff out there. If you didn't understand it, just ask me and I'll give it to you in simple terms. That sounds like an invitation there, Elaine, and I like it. Antonio wants the yellow track. Milk and bread sandwiches for everybody. Just went to Walmart because I needed pork chops. No milk in sight. Plenty of toilet paper, though. Oh, me. So if you lose power and your refrigerator dies, what's one of the first things that's going to ruin? Milk. If you feel this crazy urge to have milk during a snowstorm, a better idea is get powdered milk. I know. But as a kid, I was fed powdered milk quite often from at least one of my grandparents. But it makes better sense to get the powdered milk instead of liquid form. You got to worry about it going bad. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate those kind words. Hey, Larry, up in Scottsboro, I think you're going to get a decent snow in Scottsboro regardless of the track, unless it tracks further north than that northern track I showed you. I think Scottsboro is probably going to get a pretty decent snow. Kind of cool down in Gainesville, Florida. Absolutely. Yep, propane stoves certainly do come in handy. Work Saturday morning in LaGrange, Georgia. Well, Derek, it's going to really depend on exactly what ends up happening Friday night. I think there is a decent chance that travel might be a problem across West Georgia Saturday morning. Maybe by noontime on Saturday, things will improve tremendously. But, you know, it won't take much. I mean, if you get a half inch to an inch of snow accumulation and maybe throw a little bit of sleet in on top of it and you get about 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain on top of that, then you ain't driving over the 109 bridge. It ain't happening. Hey, Alexis, get that hot chocolate ready. It's not going to be a tremendously fast-moving storm, and we're talking about moving into central Alabama. All right, so central Alabama at about 2:30 on Friday morning, and then ending at about 6:30 Saturday morning. So, I mean, we're talking 12, 13, 14 hours here. Good, Brian. I look forward to you being here. Now, understand, y'all know this. Most of you do. I'm an emergency manager. That's my grocery buying job, and we're planning on. It depends on how things evolve tomorrow, and again Thursday. I've already lost track of what day of the week it is, and we are not even there yet. Our weather service over here in Georgia will do a live webinar tomorrow. We'll see what they've got to say. We'll make some decisions tomorrow, some staffing decisions. We're going to beef up our 911 center, our fire department, all the public safety things. We'll make a lot of those decisions tomorrow after the webinar with the weather service. And then we're kind of thinking that we will activate our emergency operations center probably Thursday night. So I will be at work Thursday night, most likely most of the day on Friday. But I'm fortunate to be able to do some streaming from our emergency operations center for you guys across East Alabama and West Georgia as well. So I'll still be here. It may not look exactly like this looks because I'm in my studio right now. When I have to stream from the office, we have to do it in kind of a remote environment, so it looks a little different. But the information will still be good, so we will be here with you streaming live throughout this thing. That's one of the perks of when you leave Alabama and you move east, you still watch Alabama like a hawk because that's where your weather comes from over here in Georgia. So we still pay a lot of attention to what's happening over there in Alabama. Hey, Chrissy, up in Cragford, Alabama. Yeah, I think you're in that half inch to 2 inch range in Cragford of snow. Yeah, there'll be a lot of scrolling at the bottom of the screen Friday morning, no doubt. Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate that. Any chance of power outages? Absolutely there is. Again, I don't think we're looking at a very large area of freezing rain, and that's where the biggest threat for power outages would be. Originally, when all of this started, maybe yesterday and the day before, we had a couple of model runs that were suggesting a nasty-looking ice storm across central Alabama, even all the way down into the Columbus, Phoenix City area, and then over into southern Georgia. The models have backed off of that idea a little bit, and so now I don't think we're looking at a 50 to 75 mile wide swath of freezing rain across Alabama and Georgia. Could there be a 10 to 15 mile swath across the both states with some freezing rain? Yeah, it's possible. But I think the transition from north to south, from snow to liquid, is going to go from snow to rain. There's not going to be much of a transition in there. So I don't think we're looking at widespread icing issues that would cause widespread power outages. Now, having said that, we've had a lot of rain here lately, so it's not going to take much wind to bring down some trees. So, yeah, power outages will be possible. At this point, I don't see anything that really scares me for widespread power outages, though, across central Alabama or south Alabama. Tallapoosa County, you're going to be in that half inch to 2 inch snow accumulation range. Maybe just a little bit of ice, but I think it would be less than 1/10 of an inch, and you really need to get up to about 1/4 of an inch of ice before you start seeing major problems. I'm not seeing any models out there right now that's showing more than about a tenth of an inch of ice in any location. So that is good news. Now, we'll see. We'll see how the runs evolve throughout the day tomorrow and then again on Thursday. But consistency is getting pretty good with what we've shown you here tonight. So the confidence level still isn't high on precipitation types and amounts and placement. It is very high on the low pressure. But that confidence level is beginning to get up there, in at least the 50-50 range. And by tomorrow, we'll get it on up there in the 60, maybe 70% range. And then by the time we get to Thursday, I think we'll have a pretty good forecast. Now, I don't look for major changes in what we've shown you tonight. There'll be some subtle tweaks here and there, but I don't think it'll be anything major. Randolph County, Clay County, you're in the half-inch to 2-inch range across Randolph County. All of East Alabama, basically from I-20 down to the I-85 corridor and over into West Georgia. Basically, we're looking at a half to 2 inches of snow accumulation possible. The further south you go, the smaller amounts you're going to have. That half-inch would, half-inch to 1 inch is probably down there around the I-85 corridor. That 2-inch is up there around the I-20 corridor. So you judge on where you live in between I-20 and I-85. If you're south of 85, odds are you're just going to see a dusting. If you're north of I-20, you could see more than 2 inches. You could see anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow. There'll be some localized 5 inches of snow in Alabama, north of I-20, and there'll be some localized 5-inch totals in Georgia, basically north of I-20 on the west side and north of I-85 on the east side. And it wouldn't blow my mind to even see some 6 and 7-inch totals somewhere in extreme North Alabama and North Georgia. That is certainly a possibility. Well, thank you, Martha Benefiel. I feel kind of special that you guys still allow me to hang out with you during weather like this. Same thing for LaGrange, Dylan. You're in that half-inch to 2-inch category. Mostly snow. Villa Rica, Temple, Georgia, yeah, you're on the upper end of that half-inch to 2-inch, probably closer to the 2-inch category. Yeah, we're asking for at least 2 inches of snow in Delta, Alabama, up there in northeastern Clay County. It could happen. Wouldn't shock me. Fayetteville, North Carolina. Yeah, see, so the icing idea is kind of taking a back seat right now in all locations across the eastern half of the United States. Not saying that it's not going to happen. It's just at the moment, the models aren't really gung-ho on that icing possibility like they were at one time. Yeah, don't forget about the 3 Ps, pipes, plants, and people. Pipes, plants, people, and pets. 4 Ps. Okay, we'll add 1 to it. Thanks, Brian. Those are all things you need to take care of. You got tomorrow, and you have got Thursday to get all that done. And Brian brings up a good point. He said when he worked for the Jefferson County EMA back in the 90s, hey, dude, I was the EMA director in Randolph County back in the 90s. Have we had this conversation? We probably know each other if you work for Jefferson County, because I was on the Alabama Emergency Management Council when I served in Randolph County. But anyway, he's saying that a half-inch of snow would shut Jefferson County down and close the interstates. And he's right. That snow is just not something, A, is supposed to happen in the Southeast, and B, something we're used to because it just doesn't happen all the time. So it's not going to take much. I mean, if we get a half-inch of snow anywhere across East Alabama and West Georgia, there are going to be, some at least spotty travel problems. We get up there around an inch or 2 inches. Hey, now we're talking blizzard. Okay, let's see. What time of day is it? It is 7:49. So I got a very long week ahead of me. We got a long way to go. And so I'm not going to hang with you very long tonight. We're going to go ahead and shut this down. I do plan on doing another Weather Talk Live tomorrow night, same time, same station, and we'll bring you up to date on the latest information from the National Weather Service this time tomorrow night. But again, in a nutshell, 2 to 4 inches across North Alabama, north of the I-20 corridor, half inch to 2 inches of snow from I-20 down to I-85. I think that's just the most simplest way to put it for you this evening. I think the precipitation, when it comes in on Friday morning, will start across central Alabama, probably in the 3 to 4 a.m. time range. It will start immediately, and anything that falls will start accumulating immediately. It's not going to be a long, drawn-out deal. So I think there's a decent chance that there's 3, 4, maybe 5 hours on Friday morning, I-20 down to I-85, where you'll have accumulating snow, maybe up to 2 inches at this point, and that could change. I'm telling you, there are models out there that's showing a good bit more than that across East Alabama and West Georgia. We're taking the conservative, middle-of-the-road idea at the moment until the models can prove that number should be increased, and it may. This time tomorrow night, we may be talking about a much more significant snow event for East Alabama and West Georgia. We'll see. But 2 to 4 looks plausible across North Alabama and North Georgia. Some isolated spots of heavier snow, some isolated spots of less snow. Some folks will be happy. Some people will be mad when this is all said and done. But we're going to do our best to bring you the message from the National Weather Service and get you through this winter weather threat. Not only is it something that we don't deal with all the time, it has been quite some time since we've had a decent snow across anywhere in Alabama and Georgia. So it's got a lot of folks excited and anxious about what may be coming on Friday. We're going to get you through it. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening. Again, I want to thank Tyler Slay down at let me just pull up where'd he go? Oh, it's over on the graphics. I want to thank Tyler Slay at AT Farms down on County Road 162 at 2030. County Road 162 in Lafayette down in Chambers County for being a partner with us here on Dr. Don's Weather. Right now at AT Farms, they've got shelled deer corn for you deer hunters that are still hunting. Got a couple of 2-3 weeks left in deer season. So go by there and get your corn from Tyler. They sell it by the bag, or you can bring a barrel, and they got the barrels there too, I think. Give them a call, though, before you go, 334-614-6740 to see when they're going to be there or set up an appointment to go by there and pick up your deer corn. Thank you, Tyler, for getting in touch with me today, and hope you'll hang around with us even after deer season's over. I know you guys do more than bag shelled corn, so maybe we can keep you around year-round here on Dr. Don's Weather. We'd love to have you on with us. Hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll be back in here first thing tomorrow morning with your primetime forecast, and then we'll do another Weather Talk Live tomorrow night. We do depend on your support, fine folks like Tyler Slay. So if you own a business, would like to be a partner with us, just do like Tyler did. Send me a message on Messenger. I'll send you a link. It literally takes just a few seconds to get you going, and we can be talking about your business by the time we do our next broadcast here on Dr. Don's Weather. We'll see you in the morning. Bye now.